So I'm first going to join to introduce Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, EABC Executive Director and CEO. Mr. Kalisa is an economist by profession specialized in econometrics, trade policy, investment promotion, and private sector development and taxation-related issues. He holds a master's degree in commerce with economics from the University of Pretoria, South Africa, and a bachelor's degree in economics from National University of Rwanda. He has an in-depth understanding of the regional economic communities and has participated fully in negotiations of international, continental, and regional agreements. Mr. John Bosco Kalisa has experience in private sector development and competitiveness, having previously served as the country director of South Sudan Trademark East Africa, TMEA. He has also worked for the Rwanda Private Sector Federation and Rwanda Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. He has a global connections with leading international development partners such as USAID, Korea International Cooperation Agency, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and Africa Development Bank and the World Bank. As the EABC CEO and Executive Director, Mr. Kalisa steers the high-level policy advocacy, so incredibly important, at the EAC Head of State and Ministerial level to push forward the EABC's vision and mission of a borderless East Africa for increased business and development. Just incredible. We welcome you. Thank you so much, Mr. John. And if you would like to take a moment to introduce yourselves further, any opening comments, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Marissa, and good afternoon or good morning, depending where you are. Allow me, first of all, to congratulate and commend Anne Wambui and the team for organizing this excellent conference on trade, on CFTA. Also allow me to congratulate my brother, the new CEO for Commercial Business Council. I look forward to interact and engage further. I want to again thank you, Marissa. Indeed, you've ably articulated my brief biography, and I want to thank you. Again, as you rightly put it, this is an important session because we are looking at the regional economic communities and their role in the continental free trade area. So it is an excellent session, and I look forward to share my insight and views, as you already shared, mentioned. Of course, I'm a trade economist with diverse experience on trade matters and private sector-driven integration. As you are aware, EAC principles are very clear. The treaty is very clear. People-centered, market-driven integration. So private sector plays a cardinal role. And I want to say whatever we discuss, the prosperity for this continent emanates largely from engagement of the private sector, giving the private sector the right place in the integration agenda. The role of government must be clear. Again, the role of government is to create a conducive environment for the private sector to survive and thrive. And from where I sit at EAC, we've demonstrated that we can only absorb external shocks when the private sector is taking the leading role in integration agenda. So let me stop there. I'll come again during my session. Otherwise, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalisa. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. John Bosco Kalisa. The East Africa's Business Council's vision and mission is a borderless East Africa. And we want to take that borderless East Africa and we actually want to make it a borderless Africa eventually. And really that'll increase business and investments in this region, really there with that borderless East Africa. Can you share what work you are doing to ensure that this is a reality, Mr. John?
Yeah, thank you very much, Marissa. Again, I appreciate, and that's a good question. Indeed, our vision is the borderless East Africa for business and investment, because we believe that through business and investment, we are able to create prosperity for East Africans. And I'm happy that we are even moving further to the continent. Again, we are extending this vision of the private sector driven growth to the continent. So what we have done, again, let me just give a quick background. The new East Africa, the revised East African community, its treaty, the treaty establishing the East African community is very clear. It has two principles. One, people-centered integration, meaning that integration need to respond to the aspiration of the people in the community. Two, market-led integration or private sector-led integration, meaning that the wealth creation, as my sister Amboy mentioned, wealth creation, government does not create wealth. Wealth creation emanates from the private sector. And what private sector needs is a conducive business environment to ensure that there are no barriers to trade, no barriers to do investment. So EAC, I'm happy to mention or state here that EAC is the most performing legs among the legs in terms of the trade. Look at the recent, I want to share with you that look at the recent report by African Development Bank. Both report 2021, 2022. 2021, among legs, among African continents, among legs, the only leg that did not slide into recession was East Africa. And there were three important instruments. What did East Africa, what was that magic bullet did the East Africa do to weather the storm of COVID and other associated shocks? Of course, it was a health shock, but it had also economic shock because it impacted our lives and livelihood. So there were three important fundamentals that EAC did so that it was not able to slide into recession. One is our close ties, embracing trade. Our head of state committed that whatever happening, allow trade to continue to flow. So the trade was not hindered during COVID. Protocols were observed, COVID-related protocol observed, but essential goods, including foodstuff, could move across borders. That is what was two. Second one was the investment in productive infrastructure. The region has invested heavily in productive infrastructure. Ports, we have two ports here, Port of Mombasa, Port of Dar es Salaam. They have embraced modernization. They have reformed their business. They operate under a business-friendly environment. They operate as private ports. That was very clear. Border posts, we tried to ease procedures at the borders. You know, the borders, all the borders agents had to come together to facilitate trade. The third component was the, of course, investment in a diversified agriculture. It was also one of our savior. Even now, during the Russia-Ukraine war, it is still one of our shock absorbers in terms of weathering the storm from external shocks. So those were very fundamental instruments. And that's what EAC we are doing. That's what EABC we are doing to ensure that private sector continues to thrive, not to survive, but to thrive. It can only thrive through public-private partnership. So we've enhanced, EABC has built a very strong public-private partnership. We work closely with the EAC Secretariat. We have established what we call technical working group, where we meet monthly to iron out issues related to trade, investment, customs, all issues that would impede trade flows. So that is the magic bullet, I would say, what we have done. And our role, as is very clear, is to ensure that there is a conducive business environment for the private sector to create the wealth, to create prosperity. Prosperity is generated through trade. So as we move towards the continental free trade area, this is the same message. Private sector creates wealth. Private sector creates prosperity. The role of government is just to create a conducive environment for private sector to thrive and grow and generate jobs for the young population of our continent. Thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. John. Incredible. I love how you've put it forward there to say, in terms of the private sector, it's imperative in terms of they're really activating and really getting in there to assist where they can in terms of that job creation. We know that there are over 200 million youth on the continent that are unemployed. We know at this point in time, entrepreneurship really is the answer to that, as much as the private sector and public sector play an integral role in developing jobs for the youth. But it's incredible that as East Africa's Business Council, you came forward during a tough time. You really worked diligently to get through the COVID, that period that was so heart-wrenching for many economies. So well done to you. Well done for leading that. It's incredible. Thank you. Mr. John, over to you. We know that there are great opportunities to trade across borders, but most formal SMEs don't take advantage of these opportunities. Can you share what the EABC is doing to support private sector development, especially SMEs in East Africa, to take up this opportunity in these 7 countries that are part of the EAC?
Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa. Indeed, that's a very pertinent question. And even today, before I came for this session, I had a discussion with MasterCard Foundation to look at how do we support SMEs, especially youth and the women, in terms of job creation. And I was giving a number that the region, every year we have almost 10 million of the youth who are ready to work, but only 2 million can find jobs. That is only 20%. So that shows you the need for us to open up our markets, open up our opportunities. So what we have done as the East African Business Council, we've established an SME platform, small medium enterprise platform, dedicated purposely to look at mapping out the youth, mapping out the women in business, those who are doing cross-border business. Of course, at the EAC, we have instrument. We have generally, when you look at the number of studies, the EAC, the utilization of trade preferences, EAC again comes number 1 among the regional economic communities. You find that almost our women and the youth are able to use what we call simplified trade regime, meaning that you can trade across borders, your product less than $2,000, and those products are not subjected to administrative procedures, customs-related issues. That is an instrument already enshrined under our customs protocol, and it is being utilized. It is being utilized. The women are using it, and I know my brother today from even COMESA. It was initiated by COMESA, but the EAC has high uptake of that instrument to ensure to enable women use to trade with ease at the border. We are even under continental free trade area where we are negotiating to raise the threshold from $2,000 to $5,000 because we've realized that 70% of the trade is supported or is conducted by women and youth. So we need to deliberately to have instruments to support youth and women to trade, both at the EAC level and even at the continental level. So that's what we have been doing at the EAC, as the EABC, in terms of ensuring that the women, the youth are using a simplified trade regime to trade across borders. But in addition, we have also established trade information desks at all our borders, where women not only publishing the desks, but we also publish the products that are eligible. The products we have profiled the products in which women can engage and trade freely across borders. That has enhanced our intra-regional trade. Generally, I was looking at the recent report from UNECA. indicates that ESC, the formal trade under ESC is around 20%. But when you add the when you add informal cross-border trade, our intra-regional trade is around 42%. Because that usually we've been neglecting that trade, what we call informal trade. And in some of the countries have even now are capturing it. Rwanda, Uganda, they have a system to capture that in their national statistics. It is part of their trade data. Even when they make a policy, you find their policy has that component on how to support trade, especially SMEs and youth. So we're, again, to be clear and precise, that at the EABC, we've given ourselves a target that within, and this is a negotiation, of course, addressing a number of barriers, including trade finance, which has been one of the daunting challenges, as my brother Teddy mentioned, but also trade information has been one of the challenges for youth and women. We need to enhance, despite that we have that, but there are issues in terms of it's only we do provide information at the border, but we realize that it's also important to provide information where products are produced. We need also to have a linkage, and we're having it, we're doing it with a number of universities to link academia to the industry. That is what the EABC is doing, linking academia to the industry, because we realize that some of the student graduates don't have the skills that are required by the labor market. So we have started a program on that to address that labor gap. So in addition, one of the issues that we are engaging, that's why I'm saying I was engaging with the MasterCard Foundation and other banks, including Equity. We have given ourselves a target of at least every 5 years to create 2 million jobs. And we can only do that through enhancement, through entrepreneurship, through training for our youth and women. So in short, EABC, what you have done, and I will share it with you, we've created a platform called, a digital platform called My Isoko. My Isoko means my market. So you can buy and sell, and you can even Google it, EABC, My Isoko, meaning my market, so that the youth, the women can post their product, can sell. It's like an e-commerce platform. So with of course support from ITC, but we are rolling it out with the view to enhance the capabilities of our youth, women to do business. So those are some of the initiatives. But again, lastly, finally, we have engaged a number of banks, including Equity Bank, to provide what we call patient capital. Because we realized that during our study, we realized that our banks, our financial institutions are not providing the required capital for SMEs to grow. That's why you find that the default rate is very high, because they don't have that patient capital. So what we are trying to negotiate is a kind of venture capital to support the youth and women to do their business with ease, without being subjected to a lot of administrative requirements. So that is what we are doing to address some of those challenges. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. Wonderful, wonderful to hear. Really, it really comes down to empowering the youth and the women, on the continent. Really, it does. And, it's amazing to hear that we have got as an African economy, you've got SMEs that are contributing 20% to the African economy. And over and above that, these SMEs are actually creating 47% of the jobs on the continent. So if we can train these young entrepreneurs and the women in trade, just imagine what the contribution will be to the African economy. So it's very exciting times. I'm glad to hear that you've had those conversations with the ITC. The International Trade Center has got various free training for youth entrepreneurs, any really entrepreneurs that want to just develop entrepreneurial skills, as well as training specifically on how to trade. So it's wonderful that you've reached out there, and it's important that we start to integrate with these various international organizations to see what it is that we can leverage off their expertise as well. Thank you very much for that, John. Over to you, John, Mr. John, if you'd like to share your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, thank you. Let me say that we've lost half a century when we've been exporting to our raw materials to the rest of the world.
Fully agree.
And yes, because it has not served Africa very well. That's why we are always, most of our countries are suffering from a trade deficit, current account imbalances, because our export does not match our imports. So I think the starting point, and which is I want to appreciate, is that when the CFTA was crafted, I think it is Article 5 of the agreement, there is a component called preservation of acquis. Acquis means what has been agreed should be based on, meaning that the CFTA recognizes RECs, regional economic communities, as building blocks, because what we have done should be cascaded upwards to support the CFTA, because, as I said, among 8 RECs recognized, EAC is one of them, and we have moved to a higher stage of integration. We are now moving towards monetary union. We've done customs union, common market, monetary union. So we've deepened our integration agenda. So let me say that the reason why RECs are very important is that we've endeavored to build our capabilities, regional capabilities, in terms of production, in terms of trading services. We've even moved a step ahead in terms of what I call harmonization of standards and sanitary and phytosanitary measures to allow our region to trade with minimal restrictions. So we realize that, as I'm saying, that we've lost almost a half a century, because we have had preference in the European markets. We have now AGOA, but all our exporters complain about stringent standards.
Yes.
Now we are even talking about environmental related standards, where countries are imposing restriction for products in our region, in our continent, that they don't meet environmental standards. And yet we are not the emitters. We are not so such a requirement cannot serve Africa. We need to build, and in the previous session, my brother was there, the regional executive director for standardization. We need to have our continental regional standards. We know our products, where they are produced, they are environmental friendly. We need to embrace that. So that is the reason why I need to emphasize that we need to strengthen our RECs, because they are good grounds, especially for nurturing SMEs, for understanding regional and continental context. Lastly, I want to say that we, among 8 countries that were selected for what we call guided trade under CFTA, 4 of them are coming from East Africa: Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda, meaning that already we have already started exporting our product to West Africa to test the water, to test the market, and to look at that our instrument can work. So I would say the CFTA is going to be a game changer, but the CFTA to thrive, to be very successful, need to be anchored under RECs, need to be supported by our regional economic communities. And I think that is my message. Thank you very much, Marissa.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. So insightful. Thank you very, very much.